So hello guys, I hope you're all well and safe and having a great week so far. Tonight, Middlesex University Product Design Engineering and Design Engineering are really excited to host our 10th talk in the annual guest lecture series. This runs weekly throughout the academic year on Thursday evenings, bringing together a vibrant mix of speakers from across the full spectrum of design and engineering. A mix of leading practitioners, opinion leaders, radical thinkers, and emerging talents to inspire and support your development. And tonight we're really excited to host Elisa Defossez, joining us from Helsinki, Finland. She's an assistant designer at the luxury fashion brand Hermès, and Elisa's background is in industrial design and fashion. Industrial design, but also in fashion, clothing, and textile design. She has a bachelor's degree from Brussels, Belgium, and a master's degree from the Aalto University in Finland. Elisa has also undertaken design practice, experience, and internships in Belgium, France, and Japan in companies and places such as the Daniel Henry Textile Design Studio, Hermès, Tarafu Architects, and Mina Perhonen. And the full details of the talk and Elisa were sent to your emails ahead of the talk, including links to Elisa's social media pages, LinkedIn, Instagram, and the website as well. So definitely feel free to connect with Elisa online and get a flavor of the work that she's done, which she'll also share with you now. And without any further ado, Elisa, with a talk titled A Quiet Path, Personal Development Through Design. Elisa, it's all yours.
Thank you, Ahmed, for this really nice introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm Elisa Defossez, and I'm really happy to be here today and share with you my experience and my vision through some projects. Today's lecture, so I named it A Quiet Path, Personal Development Through Design, because I wanted to talk with you about how the personal development influences and builds our own practice. So I'm going to go through this deep link between self-expression and development in design production by illustrating it with my own experience and but before going forward, if you have any questions, yes, just write it in the chat and I can answer after. But I cannot see the chats right now, but if you have some comprehension, like non-understanding or something, just unmute your micro and you can ask me anything. Just shortly, yeah, about myself, Ahmed already mentioned almost everything. So I'm a Japanese and Belgian product textile designer based in Helsinki, Finland. I have a background in product design, and now I just graduated from textile field in Finland, and I'm now an assistant designer at Hermès. So today's talk, I really wanted to talk about the link between personal development and the design practice. For me, both are like the two are really forming an inseparable whole. And I think it's because my own definition of design is like that. I consider design as, in a really large and blurry way, quite close to art, because I think it's a way to do the self-expression and to also express our creativity. But maybe what's the difference is that we are inputting in the functionality in addition. So it's quite strong to be designer because you can express something and you are giving it to people through objects, through services, anything you design, and it's going to be part of their life, of their daily life. So you can really deliver a really strong message every day to people. So that's really amazing, I think. But since it's a self-expression practice, it means that it demands a self-development and a really deep research about yourself. So I think it's really nice to consider all your cultural, educational background as source of inspiration. And I think, and I'm hoping that it will help you to build your own philosophy into design, like what kind of designer you want to do or to be, or what do you want to express, what kind of, how you want to be helpful in the society. And you can also build your own practice, like find your own methodology, your own process. So you can interpret either your own practice. So that's what I want to talk about, and I will go through it with my own examples. And so firstly, like the structure of this lecture is going to be first about this personal path that I will explain to you. And then on the second part, I will focus on my maybe master thesis that I just presented, which is called Nuku. And it's a good example how I used all my personal background into design, product design development, and how I build my own philosophy. So I will talk about my thesis later, but this nuku-ness is a word that I invented, but it means the state, the quality of coziness. And it's my biggest quest into design, to how to give to people a warm and comfortable feeling. So that's the main research that I'm doing now. So my personal background, I would like to talk about 3 points that really deeply influenced me. First, it's about my Japanese influence. So I'm half Japanese from my mother, and I went to Japan many times, and then I also speak Japanese. But the main biggest influence that I had was in daily life that my mom gave to me, especially the philosophy that we have with the objects. So the objects have of daily life, like bowls, tablewares, even clothes, they have a really they participate into our beauty sensitivity and bodily experience. Like we really experience the whole object with the touch, like the shapes. And also I was really influenced by the way the nature observation is really a big part of the aesthetics of Japan. So it implicates like the respect of nature, but also the colors and the notion of imperfection. The second point is my musical environment I grew up in. Since my both parents are from the music field, my mother is a pianist, and then my father is an acoustic engineer. So like this type of abstract concept, like non-visible words, or like about vibrations, the atmosphere, all these notions are something really familiar to me. And also I developed a sensitivity to the here atmosphere. So I'm quite sensitive to noises, to sounds. And the third point is the Finnish life that I'm experiencing now. So I'm living in Helsinki in Finland, and here I can feel some similar point with the Japanese way to really respect nature and to be really close with. So now I'm walking every day to forest, and that's really inspiring me. And also I discovered here the most quiet atmosphere that you can imagine. And quietness is really part of daily life. And I realized how it's important in the well-being of people. So as I mentioned before, I have a bachelor degree in industrial product design that I did in Brussels, and that it was a really good education, because it wasn't about just mass production, but it was more, the industrial word is more to think about how can we be rational about things, how we can reduce the amount of waste, or how we can really think about the production, but the material as well. but it was still quite broad. So you can be also quite artistic, but just thinking about the rationality of your objects. And during these studies, I was already quite interested into colors. That was one of my main interests. For example, this project that you can see on the screen is a collaboration that we did with Tupperware company. I don't know if you know this company. It's like a plastic boxes, containers for food, quite famous. And the topic was how we can bring these boxes that we leave in fridge always, but more as tableware, so that they are beautiful, so that you can bring it to on the table to a dinner, for example. So for me, I explored it to really simple volumes, but I mainly worked with the colors, and I used really subtle colors, shades, and it's not that common to use these shades for plastic. So it completely changed the perception that we have of the material. It doesn't look like plastic color, so I was exploring this kind of things. But I was also really interested in the notion of modularity and comfort already, and quietness. So this project, for example, Coquet, is it doesn't have a one function. It's like a carpet, it can be a wall, it can be a mattress. So I was really interested in this interaction between people and objects. And then, but still, I really liked the product design, education, but I was a bit frustrated the way it has been broad. I mean, the function and the functionality was maybe the main of the industrial product design education. So for me, the colors and the materials were more they were so important, and I wanted to create my own materials by myself. So it's why I was really interested into textile design, because textile, you start with nothing. So you can really create your own material by choosing the yarns, by choosing the colors, by choosing also the structure. There are so many types of structures, so you can give different properties to the material. So it's why I was really interested into, and I applied to Aalto University. So during these studies, we did hand weaving to understand with the logic of the structures, and then we did the industrial weaving, like this one. It has been industrially woven. I did weaving, but I was also interested in, a bit like the Tupperware project, into the relationship between colors and the materials. So for example, this experimental work, I don't know if you can guess what kind of material it is, but it's the really industrial, quite bad looking furniture padding foam. I don't know if you see this, a bit yellowish, not quite pretty. And I dyed and I printed on it, and it totally changed the way we perceive the material. So that's really one of my big interests. And then now I would like to go through the experiences that I had, mainly the internships. I think internships are maybe the best way to find your interest, to meet people. I think it's really one of the best things to do. I know with COVID it's a bit tricky maybe now, but I really encourage that. And the first one that I did was Torafu Architects. They are based in Tokyo. It's a studio of interior architecture, so they are doing also object, window display, furniture, really a lot of things. And even though I wasn't in architecture or anything, The reason why I applied there because of this image that I'm showing now. It's the really iconic object. It's a air vase, they call it, and it's just some cuts in the paper so that you can develop it into volume. And I thought it was so poetic and so beautiful. Then I just applied, and I really discovered there the different scales of projects, and it was really interesting to see how they link space, object, like the details were like everywhere. You can design everything. So that was really amazing experience. The second internships that I have done is at Daniel Henry Studio. He is based in Belgium, in Tournai, and he specialized into really experimental screen printing on fabrics. I don't know if you know screen printing. It looks like this. It's maybe the ancient, like the previous way to print. Now it's maybe more digital, but it was with these frames, and it was my way for me to learn textiles because I was still in product design department at that moment, but I was really curious about textiles, and it's the way you can also learn different fields through internship. The third internship that I have done is at Minna Perhonen. Minna Perhonen is a Japanese fashion and more lifestyle brand based in Tokyo. They started mainly with fashion, but they did also a lot of textiles. And again, I just fell in love with the textiles and I just applied. And the really nice part of this brand is that they are creating their own fabrics and then the clothes. So they have the whole, like the creativity is like everywhere. And I was so excited about these fabrics just around me and these beautiful patterns. I was really decided to also have my own pattern printed on textile. So I suggested many type of drawings, and then they finally chose one small drawing that I have done. So that's the drawing, and it became interior fabric in their collection. So that was really nice to suggest. You don't have to be afraid of anything, just suggest new proposition. Is sometimes you have nice surprises. And the last internship that I have done is at Hermès, but maybe not the main like part of Hermès. It wasn't about fashion, prêt-à-porter, but it's the bespoke objects department. So they are doing really unique pieces or really small scale collections of objects, and also really big project as boats or planes, and also unique customized object or bags. And that's the thing I'm working for. And it's quite interesting to see when you look at my path that I'm in now to bags, and bags is like an in-between textile and object, because we start with leather, which is really soft, and we give the volume. So it's quite interesting to see these cross-disciplinary skills that it might need. So that was my path, and now I would like to introduce you my thesis, because it's really a good example to see how I input all the things I just talked about into a design development. So my thesis title is Nukuness, and it means the state, the quality of coziness. and it's a word that I invented based on the Japanese word nukumori. And nukumori, it has a really blurry meaning, as many Japanese words, but it means approximately a feeling of coziness and comfort in a psychological and physical way at the same time. And it's really personal. So my definition of nukumori might not be the same than you have, because it's based on your own experiences that you had in your life. So my thesis was to explore this nukumori, and especially mine. So it was more an introspective research about myself, what is for me nukumori, and then the challenge was to use that as a source and inspiration for a functional object. And in this case, the functional objects were acoustic objects made of wool felt material. And the aim was really to bring this warm sensation in the atmosphere in terms of sound, but also in terms of visuals and touch. So I really wanted to implicate like many senses at the same time and not only visual. So as I said, the research goals, there were two. The first one was the embodied aesthetic experience, as I explained, with different senses. And the second one was to describe how I kind of have a cross-disciplinary approach, because I'm in a product-based development, but I'm using many textile knowledge that I earned here during my master. So I wanted to explain how this textile thinking has been implemented. The research structure was mainly into two parts. The first one was the concept part, and then the design practice part. For the concept, it was mainly what I just talked about, the personal background, educational background, and just analyze it and see from when I'm interested in this comfort and coziness topic. And that really helped me to set up my positioning, like what I'm interested in, what is my philosophy. And then the second part of the design practice, it was the autoethnographic research. So it means that I did a big journey in my subconscious to find out the features of my nukuness and use it into the ideation of the collection and the product development as well. You already seen these images, I know it, but it was to show you that when I was analyzing my previous works, I realized that there are many common interests that I already had, but really in a subconscious way. So I think it's really good to go back to your like really old works. You will always find a common thread. And it's how I found out that I was interested into the notion of comfort, especially with the colors, with the idea of gradation, of softness. So your own works can be also a really good data to start to work. So after analyzing, I did a big map about my positioning, where for me, the daily dialogue with objects is the main thing. And so I linked it with the holistic design approach that implicates all the senses and also the material consciousness that we can have through it. For the autoethnographic research, there are many different methods to go into your subconscious, I think. But I did it in a visual way. So I did it through, here you can see some collage. So I didn't know how to approach my subconscious without thinking, because when you start to think, it's not your subconscious anymore. So I just took a magazine and I just let me look at the images, and once I feel a bit of warmth in my, I feel, oh, that looks cozy, oh, I like it, oh, there's something happening. I just got it, and I started to do these compositions and this collage. And when I finished, I started to classify them, and I found out that there are some features that they are common. Like, so it was quite nice to organize my nukuness, my coziness features. So here you can see a bit more developed diagram about my own nukumori sensation. So as you can see, there are the visual and touch and the hear sense. And here you can find the quietness that is one of the biggest feature of my own coziness perception. So it's why I had the idea to develop acoustic objects for interiors. And starting from this idea to make acoustic objects, the process of the design development was into 5 steps. First was the ideation of the collection and the storytelling and everything. And then the first product development, the collection coordination, the second product development, and then the market consideration. For the ideation, so I really wanted to link these functional acoustic objects with a really personal narrative story. So I chose a strong memory that I had of a walk in the forest in the end of the summer in Finland. Here in Finland, at the end of summer, it's really beautiful because it's quite melancholic. You know that it's already the end of summer, which was really short, and you know that it's gonna be winter really soon and forever in the darkness. So there's this really melancholic beauty into it. And the sun is quite low, so you have really big shadows and really orange lights. So I wanted, and this was quite nukumori for me. I feel really cozy with these lights. So I took this memory as inspiration to build a collection of colors, for example. So I had this ending summer melancholy colors board, the dried vegetation boards, mosses and rocks color boards. And I interpreted this strong memory through the collection of acoustic felt objects, for which I chose really soft colors. And also I tried to work with gradients, which is really one of the main visual feature of my coziness feeling. And as you can see, I realized that it was really linked with my Japanese influence that I had subconsciously. For the first product development, it was mainly intuitive mock-up sessions. So I was just playing, experimenting with the felt material, but also with paper. So I printed different type of gradients, different types of ideas, developed many types of shapes with it. So it was really intuitive and just, let your creativity goes. And during that process, I found out the textile thinking knowledge that I implemented into my project. So it was about I found out 4 features that for me you can implement in any type of works, and it's part of textile knowledge. It's about surface and repeats notion. So you have one module, but you can repeat it so that it's infinite surface. The structured system thinking, the notion of rhythm also, and also the subtleties. So this type of vibrations that you can feel on the surface. And in parallel of this really intuitive, really creative mock-ups process, I also did some acoustics researches because I wanted that it's also functional. So I started to look at what type of shapes or what type of materials are the best for the absorption. And I also did this type of mood board with other acoustics objects that already exist, like curtains or modular objects. And at the end of this first product development, I did also absorption tests, actually with my father. So we recorded some noises with and without the objects, the samples that I made. So we discovered which shape, which thickness works the best. So that really helped me to do the decision of it's narrowed down with all your samples. It's really narrowed down and force you to make decisions. So it's a really important step. The third step is the collection coordination step. I think the collection coordination is more textile and fashion knowledge, maybe, especially about the colors, the balance between the whole collection, how it will look like, the different scales, the dimensions, and so on. So that's also really an important and interesting part. And also, I did the last decision of which shape works so well. So it was really decision-making stage. And then we have the second product development. It wasn't about creativity properly, but it was more how to adapt your ideas for machines, for the productions, how to reduce as much as possible waste. And so that more maybe the industrial designer part of me. And here we have the final collection. So it's a collection of 4 acoustic objects made of felt. They are wall hanging, all of them. The first one is Nuku, from the Japanese word Nukumori, and it's a modular acoustic wall covering system. So it's monomaterial. It's just one felt sheet that is cutted in the edges so that you can fold them, pinch them so they get a volume, and then you can connect them like in an interlocking way. So it's totally modular, and you can create your own dimensions, your own color combinations. And it has a print on it, a gradient print that emphasizes the volume of the felt. The second object is Nami, which means wave in Japanese, and it's a wall acoustic panel made of wool felt strips. And a bit similar to the previous object, it has some cuts on the edges, so you can just attach the strips into a felt background. So again, it's monomaterial, and here I wanted to play with the kind of illusion because it has a print at the place there is a fold, yeah. So there is kind of illusion between the real shade and the shade created by the print. So it gives a really nice, like vibrant surface. The third object is mutos. Mutos means change in Finnish. And this object is a wall tile, a wall tile. And you can curve it because it has a metal yarn going through, so that it keeps the shape when you fold it. And I wanted to explore this nice gradients. So you print a big gradients, but when you fold it, it's separated into intermediate colors and shades. And the structure is also quite simple. It's just some foldings of the felt sheets. The last object is valo. It means light in Finnish. And in this object, I wanted to more explore the really soft light that I explained to you of this ending summer memory in Finland, really like a glows, and I express it through a pattern that I designed and has been printed, so it gives kind of blurriness. And this panel can be used as a space partitioner because it has been made into repeats, so you can put them next to each others, or it can be also just hung on the wall. So you can see here, I designed 2 colored prints that are just, they have a small offset, so it gives a really blurry impression. And yeah, I would like to thank you. I did it quite, I think, short, but I wanted to more interact with you. So thank you for your attention, and let's discuss more together.
Amazing. Thanks, Elisa, for the really inspiring, interesting, and informative lecture on your background, on your philosophies, and also your education and your work as well. So guys, feel free to gather your thoughts, your questions, your comments in the chat. And as usual, there's also the option to go live and interact with Elisa via questions and sentiments as well. So definitely feel free to do that. And maybe I could kick it off with saying that, it's a really interesting mix in terms of your academic background, right? Because you have an undergraduate in industrial design and then a master's degree in fashion, clothing, and textile design. And, considering the audience here, you have BA product design students alongside BEng product design engineering and the BEng, MEng design engineering students as well. I guess some of the work that you showed towards the end, especially with the acoustic panels, they have both the aesthetic and the design attributes there, but at the same time, it really offers an opportunity in terms of industrial design. It opens up things like material science and material properties, alongside things about testing and validating objects in terms of their acoustic properties and capabilities and attributes like that as well. So the question there is, in terms of your design-led practice, so your practice through design and research through design and practice, what elements of engineering and validation did you implement in terms of some of the acoustic artifacts that you have?
So you mean what kind of more engineering part I implemented, or like more functional?
Exactly.
I consider it. Mm-hmm. It was mainly with the acoustic, like the absorption tests. Sure. That I did with my father, who is acoustic engineer, so he really knew how things worked. And there I really, it's by testing that I realized, oh, my things doesn't work, my thing works, but I really first need to be totally free, I have to say. Just knowing some basics about acoustics, like, okay, this type of convex shape diffuse more sounds, okay. the thickness is important, the density is important, really, but just the main ones, really not into details. That really helps me to be creative still, but still I know some features, some important features. And then we did this acoustic absorption test, and I found out more in details, like difference between different thickness and different features. And there I I modified my own design so that they fit more and they work better. So I think it's nice to know the big, like the main lines, and then, but not too much, so that you can be creative. And then at the end, go more into details and more technical issues. Like, maybe, I don't know if I answered your question.
No, definitely. That's really interesting. And the questions are coming in and requests as well. So moving first to Demi Banjo. Demi's asking, what made you switch from industrial product design to fashion and textile design, and how did you find the transition?
So from product to textile. Yeah, as I said, I really love product, and I'm still really into it. But the way, maybe it was just the teachers, the way they considered the colors and the materials, it was really, oh, Elisa, you are always talking about colors, but it's not the main important thing. You have to think about the functionality, and if the color of the material plays a role into the, how is it, really obvious functional way, then you can use it. But otherwise, it's just an extra. Like, it has been considered as something plus. Okay, if you have money, if you have time, let's put a pretty color or something like that. And this type of thinking, I really didn't agree with. I was like, no, I think colors and material perception has a really big influence into how we consider the material, how we consider the object. Maybe it will bring more respect to object if there is a really, wow, in a color that you really like, or it brings something, you feel it's maybe not expensive, but it's quality wise really high, and maybe you will not trash it as fast, maybe. So it's why I wanted to explore more about colors and materials. And some teachers talked me about the textile studies. And in textiles, yeah, as I said, they start with nothing, and you can really create your own material first. So I thought that was really strong, and it's why I was interested into textiles. But the transition, it was a bit hard in a way that it was so new for me. And but I think the why teachers even accepted me into this master degree was because I have another point of view. So technical things you can always manage, you can always learn, but if you are really interested in, and if you have a interesting way to combine maybe product and like other fields, I think people are really happy to mix. So I would encourage anyone who want to switch to another field. It would be always okay. A bit hard from the beginning for the technical things, but after that, I think it's okay.
Amazing. Add some breadth to your skill set as well, right?
Yeah.
And then Tom Millward is asking, what do you mean when you mentioned acoustic objects? So maybe he kind of his internet
Yeah.
cut out a little.
Yeah, by acoustic objects, there are different types of, but mine is especially about sound absorptions and trying to reduce the noise in like common spaces or interiors. So to have this kind of muffed effect of sounds, so like a bit more cozy atmosphere of, because if like ceramic, this is really not cozy for me, the sound that it gives, because it's a straight sound. But if it's a absorbed sound, it's really diffusing sound, and the quality is quite gives coziness. So it's more absorption objects and noise reducing objects. Yeah.
Brilliant. And Navpreet's asking, what designers have inspired you? How have they inspired you, and why do you take a source of inspiration from them?
You mean from other designers or from other objects?
Other designers, other objects.
In terms of objects, I have to say that I'm not that inspired by other designers' objects. So I have really difficulties to do. When I start a project, I never go to see what others have done. I don't know, I cannot work like that. But I'm really inspired into more their own philosophy. So I would say that I'm really interested into Hella Jongerius works, like Burlek, but not for what they are doing. Of course, I think it's really beautiful, but I really like to see what they want to express through it and how they are following the common thread that they have into their projects. So that may be what inspires me. And for the objects, maybe second-hand objects that I found randomly are maybe the most for me. Really influencing me. But yeah,
that's brilliant.
How I work.
And Drew, he's asking, when you start your design process, do you have any goals, like what you would like to achieve? And how do you think your designs push your philosophy or drive your philosophy?
So when I started, I knew already the material. That was one thing, because I did researches about acoustics. And also I did actually a collaboration with a company who was working with felt. So I had the material. I just knew the small, like the little of the features that I told you before about the absorption features, but otherwise I didn't know anything. I just did with hands, and by doing, ideas came, I think. So that's how I did, at least for this project. And in general, it's more intuitive. And then what was the second question? Sorry.
And how do you think your designs drive your philosophy? Or is it the other way around?
I think it's both ways. It's same with personal development and design practice. It's really in both ways. You take inspiration in a subconscious way or conscious way from your personal how you are actually and what you have lived, and it helps you to build your own philosophy. And then the philosophy, when you go deep into it, you start to also change yourself, I guess. So I think it's both. They are just working together.
Amazing. And Demi Banjos is more of a comment. She said, beautiful patterns and beautiful colors.
Thank you so much.
Your work. Now, there's a few of the students that would like to go live and ask and interact with yourself. And first and foremost, talk with us. Feel free to unmute yourself. And
hi, Elisa. So thank you very much for agreeing to do the guest lecture.
Yeah. Thank you.
Are you right now in Finland or somewhere else at the moment? In Finland?
Yeah, Helsinki.
You're lucky you have a lot of snow. So my question would be, what about artisanship and technology relations in the company like Hermès?
By technology, you mean new technology or like what?
Yeah, like new, because let's say Louis Vuitton, they're turning their bags into flexible OLED screens, something like that. But let's say Hermès are staying more on handcraft and artisanship.
Yeah, I think because artisans are really the soul of Hermès, as I experienced it. They are really the god hands, and I think they really want to protect that savoir-faire. Of course, I think I don't know that deep into the house, so I cannot talk in the name of Hermès or anything, but what I have felt is that they want to protect it and maybe take the time to develop and do it little by little. I think they're implementing also technologies, but more in not that, how is it, obvious way, more in a humble, hidden way. For example, they developed new suitcases or some objects that are still beautiful, but not obviously too technological looking. I think it's, I think they're doing it, but in a more quiet way, maybe.
Thank you so
Amazing.
much.
Thank you, Torvidas.
Thank
Now
you.
moving on to Navpreet. Go for it, Nav. And Nav, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you for your talk. It was
Hello.
really inspiring. So you explored Nuku-ness,
Yes.
and does that mean you asked for feedback in regards to your designs and your patterns, or was it just how you felt towards them?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
So did you ask for feedback from others and like your colleagues in regards to your patterns and your work, or was it just how you felt and did you?
Yeah, in that work, it was really about my own Nuku-ness. So I explored my own subconscious and I found out some features that I used as inspiration. But I wrote, for example, in my thesis that I really encourage people to use this Nuku-ness. It's a word that I invented, so, but please use it. And I really encourage everyone to do a bit same, just, what makes me feel really nice and really comfortable. And that can be also a source of inspiration, but it might be really different than mine because you have another life, you have other memories that I'm sure that are really beautiful. So yeah, I just encourage people to use own memories and sensations.
So did you ask for feedback from others and asked how they found it or what they thought about it, or it wasn't a thing that you considered?
I didn't consider people's actually coziness feeling. I just expressed mine into that, and then I had some feedbacks when it was finished that people still feel also quite cozy with it. So I hope it's not too far from people's coziness feeling.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Nav. And next, Brady. Go for it, Brady.
Thanks, Ahmed. Thank you, Elisa, for your talk. It's been really, really wonderful. You have this really great background. You come from, you have different cultures in your background. You've worked in Japan, you've worked here in Europe. I'm just kind of curious, what connections do you see or have you experienced, especially having worked both in Japan and here in Europe, in terms of design trends or processes? Like, what are some similarities that you've maybe noticed, and or some great differences between working and living both in Japan and then here in Europe?
That's quite different, I have to say. I feel especially Japanese culture is so special. I mean, not in a good or bad way. It's quite unique, let's say. And it's quite hierarchical. I don't know how to pronounce this. Like you have, as intern especially, or as beginner in a company, you cannot really usually do design properly. You have to do the more not creative parts. But what I learned is that you can still try, as I did with the drawing. You can force a bit, and then it can happen or not. It depends, but I learned that. So also for the design, it's not maybe as free as Europe. If you have an idea here, you can just talk and it might happen. And and that's it. But in Japan, there is an order, like you have to be there, you have to present this person have to talk. I mean, it was quite different in that sense, maybe.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Amazing, thanks a lot. And now Elisa, she again, she echoes Demi's sentiments in that she really likes the selection of colors that you have, especially the kind of emotions that you evoke. And she said that it's not very nice looking and very warm. And the question that she would like to ask as well is that, what is the biggest challenge for you so far in your career?
Big challenge. It's maybe this, what I have said about design for me is quite close to art and for the self-expression. And it was really good to have a question that I didn't consider people's also causeness feelings. So I have to, I think, balance between this self-expression and these functionalities, and also, yeah, to be aware that it's in a, like in another context with people who are gonna use it. It's not only me. So it's for people, but still you have to be really strong, I think, as designer. If you work more like for visual looking also objects, you have to be really strong and unique, but at the same time balance with people's need, function, yeah, and markets. So maybe that's the big challenge.
Amazing. And it was another really interesting question coming up from Harry Miller Adams, and something that I was going to ask you in the coming moments as well was, your background is really diverse, especially your experiences and the work that you've done and the context that you've worked in. And it'll be really interesting to see that your advice in terms of getting experience, in terms of internships, or even post graduation, in terms of getting your foot in the door or getting that first employment. What advice would you give to the students?
Just try a lot. Like, really don't be afraid of being you will not be ridiculous anyway, but just try as much as, just send as many as emails as you can. Just because my first intern, I think everything is linked, so the internships actually quite linked. The first internship that I did in Japan, they introduced me to the Minna Perhonen one that I applied after. So it's really important, I think, to do internships because it's linked with other internships or jobs after. But this first one, I just opened a book, I saw this image, and then I saw the emails, and then I wrote them. So you can really be not scared and just do it. I think it's the best advice. I don't know if it helps, but just try.
Awesome.
It'll be okay.
And what final advices or takeaways would you give the students?
Do what you are passionate about. It's so, without this fire that you have when you are so happy to do something, without that, I think it's so sad. Life is so sad. So that's my advice.
Amazing. Elisa, thanks a lot for your talk. It was really inspiring, and thanks for taking.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for taking out your time to join us all the way from Helsinki as well in Finland. And if you were ever to come to the UK and London, always feel free to drop us a line. We'll love to host you on campus as well. For all of the students and all of the staff and participants, it's been a great 10 weeks so far with a diverse range of speakers across design and engineering. Feel free to listen to the talks via the podcast and replay the webinars. The ones prior to Christmas are all have been uploaded, and the subsequent ones will be in the coming weeks as well. Feel free to like them, share them with others as well. And if you click on the link that's been posted in the chat now, you can feel free to subscribe, and then you'll be alerted when something new is posted. And then you'll also be able to view the newly published videos in your subscription feed as well. We really look forward to seeing you guys all next week. Keep an eye on your emails for the details of the speaker and the links to the talk. And until next week and until next time, stay well, stay safe, and thank you guys. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Emma.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Elisa.
Saskia.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.